Welcome back. A couple weeks ago, we did a video on nuclear warfare preparedness, and we got a lot of good comments. Some stuff we didn't think about, we didn't cover, so it prompted us to dig a little deeper.
Well, we didn't cover it because we didn't know it.
Yeah,
This is so out of our...
we didn't know it because, like we said in the last video, it's just not something we really thought about. We just figured you're dead. But the more we dug into it, we realized there's a good chance we probably would survive, so we better figure it out. So go watch that video. It's got a lot of good basic stuff. Read the comments. There's some really good comments. We had
From people that actually knows
one viewer that actually did the government training
in the military.
And basically was like, it's good basics, but there's way more to it. So we dug a little deeper. Instead of having a very long video covering 5 or 6 different things, we're just going to do like episodes, 5 to 10 minutes of the different topics, so that
Breaking it up into bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, so you can go and study. If you want to study, it gives you time to study it, and then the next video will come out, and then it'll be kind of like a little class. We don't know a lot of this, so let's learn together. If you know more than us, we welcome your comments. We want your comments. If you want to message us, that would be awesome too.
And we're going to have the resources that we used linked in the description, so you can dig into it deeper than we are. We also recommend that you print the stuff off.
Yes, I put a little, make yourself a little manual, because if there is a nuclear event, one of the side effects of that we all know is an EMP. So you're not going to have your electronic stuff available.
No Google.
Probably not anyways. Even if you have it in a Faraday kit bag or something like that, there's a good chance it may or may not work. So print it off, have a little binder, and then we always encourage you to practice your stuff. So if when we get to decontamination and you build your little decontamination chamber, practice that. Put it together, make sure you get a system where every piece is numbered, or however you want to do it, whatever you figure out how to do it. This is time to practice. We don't want to be practicing when we don't have a lot of time.
You don't want to put it together the first time when your life depends on it, and then find out, I don't have enough of whatever.
Yeah. So I want to give a big shout out to Lee at the Cold War Prepper. Check out his channel. He helped us out with some research on this, and he's kind of a go-to person on this. He's former military, and so he knows a lot of stuff, but we kind of collaborate back and forth on some things.
Including your books.
Including my books. I've been on his podcast a few times, so check out his stuff. He helped us out with finding some PDFs that we're going to include in the description.
We were picky about what resources we wanted to use. We didn't want to just find some Joe Schmo that was like, hey, here's how you survive a nuclear blast. Because like we were talking about, this is a matter of life or death. You have to get it right.
And one of the things we ran into was trying to find experts on this. Is the experts can't talk about it because they're former military and the information's either classified or they sign non-disclosure agreements. And so it's hard to find really, because you don't want the enemy knowing about what kind of weapons we have and that kind of thing. So it's sensitive stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there, but it's not super deep. And if you're like a math nerd and stuff, you can get into all the math behind it. We're not going to do that.
It's just right over my head.
But the first thing I wanted to talk about was, we always hear on TV and everything else of the size of bombs. When they dropped bombs in Afghanistan and stuff, they're like this big 20 megaton or kiloton bomb or whatever. But we really don't know how that is measured.
No,
I didn't know.
Bomb.
We just know it's big, right? Well, it's measured. The bomb that they dropped on Japan during World War II, they measure it by what the destruction would be in TNT or dynamite. So it was 20,000 tons, like having 20,000 tons of dynamite go off all at once. Do you remember in the news a few years ago where that fertilizer plant in Lebanon, or that ship or warehouse was keeping fertilizer, blew up? Half the town blew up with it. I don't know how big that was, but if you do, put it in the comments, because I'm kind of curious. I haven't looked it up. But anyways, that's how they would measure it. So when you're talking about megatons and that kind of thing, that you were exponentially bigger, but just know that it's measured in that amount of destructiveness of dynamite, except for a nuclear weapon has radiation. And that's what we're talking about today, is radiation. So there's all different kinds.
That means it's twofold. You've got
Yeah, you got
the
destruction.
destruction, like the dynamite destruction, and then you've got the nuclear component too.
Yeah, and it's always it's the radiation that most people are concerned about, because the other stuff you can't really do anything about. It's the radiation, the after effects of that, and that's what we're concentrating on. Although I will kind of go over a little bit that I learned, because I'm a nerd when it comes to this stuff, on how the bomb actually works and what happens on that. I'm not going to go over the different types of nuclear weapons. If you want to learn that, there's a really good book that I read in high school. It's called Alas Babylon. That's what kind of got me into the apocalyptic type fiction stuff that I read, listen to, watch, write. And so, but it's really good. It was written in 1959, so I'm sure there's newer bombs. I'm not going to get into the different isotopes, the half-lives, anything like that. That's just, to me, that's boring. It's information you need to know, but it's information you need to learn on your own pace, because watching a video could be like watching paint dry.
There's no way
to go over that. So this is a PDF that we're going to go over, and it's going to be in the description again. So there's one of the comments that was made several times was, well, different types of detonations. There's surface bursts, there's high altitude bursts, and there's regular bursts that would most, like we did with Nagasaki and Hiroshima. It bursts a certain altitude to get, so a government is going to do an altitude burst. Whether it's high altitude or lower depends on what they want to accomplish. A high altitude burst is going to, most likely anything over 100,000 feet, I believe, is going to result in an EMP type of destruction. So not a lot of things on the ground or radiation that we're going to have. It's going to mostly just knock out our grid and knock out everything with a
our infrastructure,
everything with a circuit board, which is everything these days. So that's going to be the most mild destruction, but in the long run will be probably the worst, because it knocks out everything. So they do 3 over. There's 3 spots in the United States. If they do 3 over just simultaneously, it'll knock out everything in the United States, and it'll take us years to recover from that.
Because that would take out our power grid, our water, our vehicles.
We won't be able to get all our fuel pipelines. Everything is run by computers these days, and so that would be probably what I would expect if a state actor was to do that. That would probably be what they would do, in my opinion. An air burst, like I said, was what we did. A low altitude burst is what we did in Nagasaki, and that's to give you loss of destruction, but the radiation isn't as much. And then you have your surface burst. That's going to be if we have a rogue nation, a terror attack, something like that, suitcase bombs, or a dirty bomb that we talked about. That's going to give you the most radiological debris, but it's not going to be as widespread as an airburst. So airburst is more widespread destruction and radiation, but the radiation isn't as bad. So what happens when you have a nuclear bomb is, when it explodes, there's 3 different phases of it. The underground or underwater burst is another one that's how they do the testing now. So if you remember, if you watch the news 10 years ago, they were talking about North Korea's they knew they were detonating bombs because of earthquakes and stuff, and they knew they were testing them. So they knew that's how they knew they actually had a nuclear weapon. So I want to get a little bit into fallout. What is fallout? That kind of thing. But to understand what fallout is, we have to understand the bomb. It's like I said, this is just basic stuff.
No, it's not basic stuff.
It's not basic stuff, but I'm covering the basic part of this. I'm not a scientist, so it's just how you learn it. So you have the blast, which is the explosion, and then anytime you have a blast, you have what they call overpressure. And just like at this, right, I'm going to read it because it's just how it works and what it does. You've got your blast, and within 10 seconds of a megaton yield weapon, that's a huge one, fireball is over a mile wide. In a minute after the blast, it has grown to 4.5 miles from the point of the burst. At the same time that the fireball is forming, you have a high pressure wave. And what that does is it moves outward from the fireball. So you think of it like the shock wave, okay? It's highly compressed air. It is the shock wave, but it's highly compressed air, and that'll travel 3 miles within 10 seconds, and in 50 seconds, it's 12 miles. So you get this massive That's going to be a lot of your damage that's not burned up. Just anyone that's within 5 miles of that blast wave, you're not going to hear this. It's so fast. But many people outside the shock, that are in the shock wave, may still live. It says many unsheltered people can withstand and survive this shock wave and blast effect if they are outside the 5 mile radius. So you're outside the 5 mile radius of the bomb, of the fire, you could potentially survive.
Oh, that's when I was reading this, it was talking about that drop and cover that we were taught in school.
That's probably why.
They're like, get in a ditch, get like as close to the ground as you can, because then you're less of a target's not the right word, but you're going to get less damage from that shockwave because...
So make yourself small.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we were in school, we're old enough, when we were in school, nuclear bomb's going to come get under your desk. Now it kind of makes a little sense, but back then we were like, we're going to burn up.
What is that going to do?
So when that happens, it creates, the fireball will create fallout. So how does it create the fallout? What it does is that pressure when you have the explosion and that shockwave, that pressure brings up dirt, debris, everything from, just think like a tornado, brings that up into the cloud, the nuclear cloud. Then you see the mushroom cloud, brings that up. And then that falls down
now it's contaminated.
But now it's contaminated and radiological. In the movies, it's always like ash and stuff, and it could be, but it's dirt, it's debris, it's rock,
vaporized, whatever.
Really fine dust or whatever. It's just, it's more like, it ends up being really fine dust because of the pressure from it. But it's fallout from the earth being the stuff on the earth.
From that explosion
and back up in there. And then as the effect goes down, it dissipates like rain kind of. And then the wind can blow it to wherever. And you're going to have wind from the bomb. It's going to affect the weather system. Just like a fire, if you know anything about how fire does. Fire can develop its own weather system, and this bomb will do that. And so you're going to have wind and stuff afterwards, so it's going to spread quite a bit. The distance depends on the size of the bomb. Factor is where it's, air burst or whatever. So there's this rule that's they call it the 7-10 rule, and I would learn that. That's, if you learn anything about fallout, the 7-10 rule. So what is the 7-10 rule? It is within 7 hours of detonation, it is 1/10 of the original level of radiation.
So it breaks down really fast.
It does. So, and then 7 times 7, so 2 days, 49 hours, or 2 days, it would be 1/100th of the original level of radiation. 7 times 7 days, so that would be 2 weeks, would be 1/1000th of the original level. That's why they say they want you to stay put for at least. This is where that Geiger counter and those little meters the dosimeter we talked about in the other video would come in handy. So after you are able to get outside, you can test it. But also if you get in an area that maybe has more contamination, or you get a little too close to the detonation site or whatever the situation is, you'll know that. So that's kind of explains a little bit about what fallout is, how they size the bombs, how it's created, and why it's important to have the Geiger counters in there. What we're going to cover next, we're going to have a few different things that we're going to cover, but we're going to go into probably decontamination on the next episode that we're going to do, because that's important too. Once you're outside, you're going to need to learn that. That's going to be the next thing you need to learn. But you need to please study up on the basics if you have that, if you want to. It's actually kind of interesting. Some stuff can be boring, but if you're a nerd like me, then you'll like it.
My problem is I don't remember numbers, and it's a whole bunch of numbers.
There's also a website we're going to put in the description, so look for that. It's really cool. You can type in your city, your address. You can just type in your city and zip code. You can mess with the different size of bombs and air burst or land burst, and it'll go through like the radius of the fallout and things. Then you can plan accordingly. It's really
like a bullseye, so it says, basically in this area, you're going to have catastrophic destruction. Outside of that, you'll have this type of destruction, but not this kind of outside of that. And it gives you the radius of.
So we're going to do a screen grab and kind of mess with it in the next video when we do the decontamination for you, so you can kind of see how to do that for yourself. But it's really cool. We'll put that in there so you can mess with that in the meantime. We'll put a link to this PDF, and it's from, if you haven't joined the American Civil Defense Academy,
Yeah.
it's free to join. But if you want to buy their journals, you can buy their journals, but it's free to join, and you can get your own PDFs and read as much resources as you want. We'll put that link in there too. That's what this PDF came from. And I didn't even know they existed. They're out of Utah, but I didn't even know they existed until my friend at the Cold War Prepper sent me this PDF. So shout out to him. All right, we'll catch you next week, and we're going to cover the decontamination, and we'll do a little bit of fun on that website we talked about. Have a good day.